No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken episode number 356. And breaking today, the British MSM is in total collapse. The lies of the self-anointed gatekeepers who are responsible for journalism masquerading as propaganda have finally been exposed. Woke ITV, now actively promoting the introduction to the UK of Sharia law, a barbaric set of beliefs that should cause anyone in the West to shudder, and they're doing so via its Islamist Good Morning Britain presenter Adil Ray. It is a new low for the corrupted channel, once the representative of the British working classes via shows like Coronation Street, that is now advocating for the Islamist takeover of our once great nation, which, by the way, it's pretending isn't happening. But ITV's days are numbered, with news that it is about to be subsumed into the leftist hands of Concast, the liberal US media giant behind Sly News, which has today launched a bizarre attack on Christianity and Tommy Robinson.
This morning, because ITV is in discussions with Sky, the owner of Sky News, about selling the media and entertainment arm of its business.
Yeah, the deal will be worth £1.6 billion.
When we arrived, that lady said, "Oh, it's the far-right bishop."
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I laugh now. I am none of the things that they call me, but it's now become a moniker that is, something I laugh at.
But that patriotic bishop isn't taking the lies from Sly News lying down. His threat to that corrupted channel will be revealed very shortly. Meanwhile, the meltdown at the British Bashing Corporation, which must be defunded at the earliest opportunity, has exploded into the open thanks once again to MSM woke slayer Donald Trump. But the elite class refuses to accept the destruction of the institution responsible for Jimmy Savile, Martin Bashir, and Hugh Edwards.
I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
A majority of the BBC board appear to agree with their editorial advisor that there is a problem of institutional bias reflected in that coverage, not just of Donald Trump, but of Gaza and Israel.
It's the Telegraph, which has been campaigning on this matter, which frankly are vastly inferior to the BBC when it comes to partisanship and balance, are managing to set an agenda.
And in the past hour, the US president has given the British Bashing Corporation a deadline. 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. UK time this Friday. Apologise and retract in full, or I'm going to sue your asses for £1 billion. It's on, folks. It is on. So why the BBC, Woke ITV and Sly News have finally been found out, and why it's time for us all to switch off and embrace the alternative media revolution in my digest next. Then my superstar panel weigh in today. Chris Davies of True Conservative Media and Orla Minihane, Reform UK's Epping Pink Lady. Also coming up on the show today, Joey Barton is found guilty of free speech crimes in the latest dystopian example that the UK is now a sensitive censorship state, and a new low for Talk TV as the self-proclaimed home of free speech starts to censor its viewers over the axing of its star presenter Mike Graham as he speaks out for the first time. So we're going to show you Mike's message to his supporters, which was filmed away from the Talk studios as that free speech row continues. Then in the Royal Uncancelled After Show over on Substack, miserable Prince Harry's complete collapse is complete as he parties with the Kardashians and his populist, disgraceful wife at Kris Jenner's 70th, while his nephew proves the British monarchy remains strong at the official remembrance celebrations in the UK. So a huge amount of royal news over the weekend. We're going to team up with the Royal News Network for all the latest. You can join us after the main show over on Substack. That address is www.outspoken.live. We're also going to be revealing a brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at the end of the show. Here are your nominees for the worst Britain in the world today. Alistair Campbell, nominated by Barnaby Apricot, who says he's BBC through and through. And we've had a toe-to-toe on social media today, myself and Mr. Campbell, that is for sure. Adil Ray, the focus of the digest in just one moment, nominated by Sarah Booth, who says ITV's Good Morning presenter for a double hit. First, promoting the benefits of Sharia law after Muslim candidate Zohran Mamdani became New York City mayor. Second, trying to force Alec Penstone to say immigration in his interview as to why the sacrifice of World War II wasn't worth it. And Nick Robinson, he's also going to pop up in my digest today, nominated by Scottfly22 for trying to defend the BBC bias. As one of the most biased people within the BBC, I think he's panicking and can see the writing on the wall. Huge show today. Let's go. The mainstream media is literally collapsing around us. Hollow legacy institutions clinging to nothing other than their history as their unforgivable sins of the past few years lead to reputational ruin and financial destruction. They deserve it, and I celebrate it. So we'll come to the BBC's historic crisis as Donald Trump threatens to sue for $1 billion and Sly News' disgusting attempt to deride British Christians using Tommy Robinson to do so very soon. But nothing has chilled my bones more than woke ITV, a once iconic company that I worked for a decade, but is now in so much trouble that it's about to be subsumed by the hard left US broadcaster Concast, creating and allowing one of its star presenters to openly advocate for the introduction of Sharia law. This is Adil Ray. I've warned you about this guy for a long time. He is a danger. He is an Islamist who has been given a cozy platform on the breakfast show Good Morning Britain, with no journalistic experience whatsoever, by the way, to push an extreme agenda. Indeed, you might remember he was number 11 on my inaugural list of the 50 worst people in the UK today, for good reason. And he has now finally shown his true colours by backing Sharia law publicly last week after the election of Zohran Mamdani in New York, writing, "Some say Mamdani may implement Sharia law. He might. The heart of Sharia is social justice, welfare, fairness, charity, and cohesion. Most Muslim countries operate a hybrid of Sharia and civil law, and thus slowly reforming and abandoning unethical practices despite the West's portrayal." Now, The Sun reported he was hauled in by ITV bosses. A source telling the newspaper GMB execs are pretty cross. His comments sent bosses into a tailspin and he was called in. It was a nightmare, as hours earlier, as ITV, it was revealed, are in talks to sell its broadcasting arm to Sky in a £1.6 billion deal. Obviously, they don't want anything to derail the deal. So after that meeting, he posted to clarify, "I am not actually suggesting Mamdani would implement Sharia law, but many of the issues he campaigned for are also some of the positive values of Sharia that Muslims try to live by, something many of us would agree on." Believe it or not, ITV swiftly allowed him to return to that friendly sofa on Friday, remembering that they sacked Piers Morgan for far less, simply for daring to challenge Meghan Markle's various lies to Oprah Winfrey, and former stars of ITV were rightly horrified. Like my friend, the ex-This Morning presenter Emma Kenny, who posted incredulously, "Just some light stoning, a pinch of beheading, and a little touch of female subjugation. What's not to like?" But this sort of Islam extremism is now becoming so commonplace and so acceptable within the MSM that a regular star of the BBC, Chunks, goes out there and proudly admits that he would disown his own children if they dared leave Islam.
If he wanted to leave, not be Muslim, you'd disown him?
Yeah, I'd say, yo,
that can't run for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
like, as in, don't get it twisted. Don't get it twisted. You can leave it, but you can also come back. You get it?
Yeah.
But I feel like leaving
While
the
you're
fold
out,
of Islam,
yeah.
I can't part with you, man. You know what I mean? Like I know I'll always have that unconditional love. Where I see the youth, and if I see him in a pass, I'm always going to try and stop it. But I feel like having that want to love this person without being under the fold of Islam, I can't part with that, man.
Cool. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's really not. But this is just what's happening now at the British Bashing Corporation, at Woke ITV, which sees no problem, by the way, with its star advocating for Sharia law. So I just want to explain why this type of suicidal empathy will be the beginning of the end of the West. Indeed, it is. Because Sharia is an absolute abomination. A medieval throwback that has no place in the modern world, let alone creeping into our British society like some insidious virus via broadcasters we are meant to trust given their storied legacy. Sharia isn't about cultural diversity or religious tolerance. It is a blueprint for inhumanity, for oppression, for outright barbarism. It crushes individual freedoms, treats women like second-class citizens, and condemns gay people to unimaginable horrors. If we don't stand up now and shout from the rooftops about this, we are sleepwalking into a nightmare. So let me break it down with some real gut-wrenching examples that should make every freedom-loving patriot sick to their stomach. First of all, let's talk about what Sharia does to gay people. And trust me, it is nothing short of a death sentence in many places where this so-called law holds sway. In countries like Saudi Arabia, where Sharia is the backbone of the legal system, homosexuality is criminalized and punishable by death, often through flogging, stoning, or even beheading. Imagine being thrown off a building or publicly executed for loving someone of the same sex. That is the reality under outfits like the Islamic State, who justify hurling gay men from rooftops in Iraq and Syria as divine punishment. And don't get me started on Iran, where Sharia-inspired hangings of gay men are routine, all under the guise of religious purity. And this isn't ancient history. It is happening right now in 2025, and it is a stark reminder that Sharia views gay people like me as subhuman, worthy only of eradication. So I have said it before, and I will say it again, the biggest threat to us in the UK isn't some phantom far-right bogeyman. It is the creeping influence of Sharia and Islamist ideology that treats people like me like criminals, and I know for a fact that position is being taught in mosques throughout East London right now. Now let's move on to women, over 50% of the population. Sharia law is a nightmare if you are a woman that enshrines male dominance and strips females of basic dignity. In places like Afghanistan under the Taliban, women are barred from education, work, and even leaving the house without a male guardian, all justified by twisted interpretations of Sharia. A woman's testimony in court worth half that of a man. Inheritance, she gets half what her brothers do. Divorce, good luck, but men can ditch their wives with a snap of the finger while women jump through hoops. And let's not forget the Quranic verse some use to justify husbands beating their wives if they step out of line. Clearly not equality, but abuse codified into law, Sharia law. In Saudi Arabia, women still need male permission for everything from travel to marriage, and honor killings where families murder women for shaming them are often overlooked under Sharia's shadow. Stoning for adultery. That's a Sharia had punishment where women accused of infidelity, often without evidence, are buried up to their necks before being pelted to death. It is sheer inhumanity, treating women as property rather than people. And here in the UK, we already have Sharia councils operating in the shadows, dishing out advice that echoes this rubbish. It is a disgrace. And star male TV presenters on Woke ITV arguing for tolerance are sick. But the horrors do not stop there. Sharia's inhumanities extend to anyone who dares question the faith or steps outside its rigid lines. Simply leaving Islam can mean death in places like Pakistan or Somalia, where blasphemy laws lead to mob lynchings or state executions. There's corporal punishment, amputation for theft, flogging for drinking alcohol, still enforced today in Iran and Sudan, leaving people maimed for life. It is a system that breeds fear, suppresses free thought, and prioritizes divine retribution over human rights. So wake up! Because we cannot let this poison infiltrate our shores under the banner of tolerance. Sharia is quite clearly not compatible with our long-fought freedoms. It is a direct assault on them. And if we value equality, liberty, and basic human decency, we must reject it outright. No ifs, no buts. The time for pussyfooting around is over. And now that we have softball ITV shows that used to focus on, the latest Corrie storyline or a little bit of Westminster gossip, now we have them pushing this insanity. It really does mark a dark new chapter. Some sane folk have advocated for Ray's axe scene. Alison Pearson raged, Adil Ray should be sacked. Disturbing to have a mainstream presenter declaring support for misogynist Sharia law. Carol Malone added, never mind crisis talks, he should be sacked. Sharia law is an abomination that discriminates against and harms women. Chris Rose argued after disliked Adil Ray attempted to claim that jihad merely means a spiritual struggle. So it's no surprise that he declared support for Sharia law and presented it as a beacon of liberalism. This gaslighting charlatan should not be on air. Leo Kurse asked, if Adil Ray likes Sharia law, why is he here? There are many countries with Sharia law that would welcome him. Why don't people live where they want instead of turning Britain into where they want? Kamran Hassan replied, because it is his country and he has a right to argue for change within it. But Leo hit back, if migrants have the right to change their host country, you've made a very convincing argument to end immigration from incompatible cultures. Now, what's most extraordinary is that ITV's next owner, Concast, the channel behind Sly News, is even worse. As they vociferously refuse to criticize Islam in any way, today, as part of this mass gaslighting in the mainstream media, they have launched a truly revolting investigation trying to slam the rise of Christianity among patriots and Tommy Robinson supporters in this Christian nation. Watch.
Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Yes!
Yes!
Critics called you the far-right bishop, a label he rejects. But he represents a new type of Christianity, more militant, more political, one I've come here to understand. Several of those here came because they saw Dewar speaking at Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom rally. And they are ready to follow him into the cold waters of the Celtic Sea.
God bless you, Fergus, man.
I saw Kieran's speech at Unite the Kingdom rally, and it was just epic. I mean, I just loved it.
The other thing that Kieran does, he preaches around the political side a bit more, especially when it comes to, immigration and Islam. Is that a message that chimes as well with you?
I'd say so, yeah. I would say there's we are a Christian culture, we're a Christian nation. And I do feel like we have lost a lot of that.
And what are they really angry about? Why does Sly News have such a problem with this? Because the bishop appeared at Unite the Kingdom.
God, you have not abandoned Britain. And though our night has been long, yet your dawn breaks.
In September, Dewar had addressed the 150,000-strong crowd at the Tommy Robinson Unite the Kingdom march in central London. It was not his first appearance with the far-right activist.
This nation of ours is under attack.
In July last year, he also shared his stage.
We are not at war with just the Muslim.
This is something new, and it is growing. A movement that has long marched against immigration, against Islam, is now marching behind the cross.
When we arrived, that lady said, oh, it's the far right bishop.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I laugh now. I am none of the things that they call me, but it's now become a moniker that is, something I laugh at.
Now, Tommy Robinson has responded to this Sly News report, writing, Sly News turn a blind eye to Islamic speakers, politicians calling for a caliphate and hate against all non-Muslims. Yet when Brits start coming back to Christ in their Christian homeland, Sly News calls them all far right. Gutter journalism, legacy media is finished. And of course, next, Sly News decided to drag in our friends Katie Hopkins and Father Calvin Robinson over the word crusade.
It goes from a culture war to a clash of civilizations.
Or even further than that. Anti-immigrant and anti-Islam campaigners promote the idea of a holy war.
Certainly, the time of the Crusades will need to come again if we are to return.
What do you mean by that?
We are overrun in every way.
And that online culture filters back to the ground. New groups like this one on Instagram use crusader imagery to start the final war on Islam, attracting more than 50,000 followers. Maria Power, who researches the far right's use of religion, says it is Christian nationalism. Not just a flag to rally behind, but a cross too.
People there would say, this is a Christian country, we should be able to show our flag, march with the cross, say prayers at these things, and that's not necessarily intimidating or racist, it's just we are saying this is our identity, we're proud of it.
Yeah, but I think if you're using your identity to threaten and you're shouting and proclaiming your identity in a way that makes people that don't, as you see it, belong, it is threatening.
So it's threatening. It's threatening. Not the rise of Sharia law, but the return to Christianity. Of course, they would never say that Christianity they'd never say that Islam being on the march was scary, but they're happy to say it about Christianity. Watch.
You're ready for it, mate. Ready for it.
Come on, Mark.
This isn't just about the extreme right using Christianity for their own ends. It's just as much some Christians using the far right to reach new audiences.
And the Holy Spirit. Amen.
A new Christian politics, in all sorts of ways and all sorts of places, is on the march.
God bless you, man.
Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Bude, Cornwall.
Well, Bishop Karen Dua is utterly furious about that dishonest Sly News reporting. He has spoken out exclusively to Outspoken today, threatening legal action against the woke company. Watch.
Dan, I want to thank you for the opportunity to set the record straight concerning this piece on Sky News. It is nothing more than a hatchet job, a hit job, now in my opinion. I was pretty optimistic that they would be fair, but the labels that they have applied in their online and on-air reporting of me today are just totally unacceptable. They are defamation, beyond a shadow of a doubt. To label me a self-styled bishop is not only wildly inaccurate because they've done no research whatsoever, it is completely untrue. I am validly ordained as a priest. I was consecrated by a college of bishops. I am far from being self-appointed. And this label of the far-right bishop accused of corrupting Christianity, that's a massive overreach by every measure. Yes, I was vilified and attacked by some open letter to the Times and other newspapers by other clergy in this country, clergy that didn't have the guts to get into the street and talk to the people that they are vilifying. But to label me as a man accused of corrupting Christianity? Christianity is a global religion. That is a massive statement, purely intent on damaging my relationship, damaging my ministry, damaging my name and my reputation. And I am now seriously looking at further consequences for Sky News. I have the proof to demonstrate the defamation that they have labelled me with today. And I am taking legal counsel as to what to do next. But I will say this, and I will say it, I am unashamedly and unapologetically proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. I will not back down from that. I don't preach about immigration like they said. I don't preach about Islam like they said. I have views and opinions on those that I share in a public context, but they are not the context of my ministry, because my ministry is about preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, nothing else. And if that offends people, then be offended, because I make no apologies for the fact the truth will always offend someone. But today Sky News have overstepped the mark. I was pretty open-minded when they released it on YouTube yesterday, but to see the way that they're writing it up and portraying it today, Sky News, hear me and hear me well. You have not heard the last from me.
Good on you, Bishop. And all of these lies from the MSM, before we even get to the disgrace of a national broadcaster, the British Bashing Corporation. And can I just say to begin with, I am so sick of folks saying, oh, we should be so proud of this once great institution. What? The degenerates behind Jimmy Savile and Martin Bashir and Hugh Edwards? No. This organisation has always shamed the UK. And yesterday evening, it was once again making the headlines across the globe for all the wrong reasons.
About the BBC chairman has announced that both the Director General, Tim Davie, and the new CEO, Deborah Turness, are to resign.
It is 16 minutes after 6 o'clock. I'm Nana Akwe. We have some breaking news here on GB News. Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC, will announce his resignation this evening amid allegations of bias at the corporation. It is understood in a statement, Tim Davie says there have been some mistakes made, and as Director General, I have to take ultimate responsibility.
Some breaking news coming into us here at Sky regarding the BBC. We are hearing that BBC Director General Tim Davie and the CEO of News, Deborah Turness, have resigned following that criticism that a BBC Panorama documentary misled viewers.
Now, you'll know by now the controversy spawned from the leak of a dossier of shame for the corporation, which included this fraudulent edit of Donald Trump on January the 6th.
Walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Forget BBC Verify, it's now BBC Verily. But this has been the case for so long that anyone still defending this corrupted organisation complicit in the COVID scam, the Diana setup and the undermining of Brexit is a bad actor who you simply must not trust. Key among them is Adam Bolton.
What we're seeing now already is that media organisations such as the Telegraph, which has been campaigning on this matter, which frankly are vastly inferior to the BBC when it comes to partisanship and balance, are managing to set an agenda and to stir up a political response.
Not to mention the truly nutty hard leftist Emily Maitlis, who has single-handedly proven, by the way, the BBC's institutional bias in one human being on the fake news agents, who, as Graham Linehan put it, how would you know what it's about? Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall. You've been ignoring the same issues. I suspect you are not rushing to broadcast so you can all get your stories straight. But I have to say, worst of all, is Nick Robinson. He's paid something like over £400,000 by the British Bashing Corporation. So I guess there's good reason for him to spend his weekend as an attack dog for the corrupt corporation against Boris Johnson, where he posted on X, hands up all of those who think Boris Johnson is well placed to lecture anyone else on upholding standards and admitting mistakes. Now, whether you agree with that comment or not, What is astonishing is that we're then meant to take him seriously as an impartial reporter on the crisis this morning, as he continued to try and deflect attention with his ongoing obsession over GB News.
A majority of the BBC board appear to agree with their editorial advisor that there is a problem of institutional bias reflected in that coverage, not just of Donald Trump, but of Gaza and Israel, and also the argument about trans rights. That argument has been led in particular by one board member, Sir Robbie Gibb, a former BBC executive in charge of political programmes who became Prime Minister Theresa May's Downing Street Director of Communications, is one of those involved in the founding of GB News and a supporter of the Conservative Party. Friends of Sir Robbie insist he has repeatedly and consistently supported Tim Davie as Director General and wanted him to stay, and point out that he's written articles supporting the BBC and the licence fee.
Dan Hodges posted, absolutely incredible. The BBC has caught bang to rights, partially editing its flagship current affairs programme. Its Director General and new CEO resign, and the Today programme is still pushing the narrative. It's all the fault of shadowy board members mounting a coup. Just listen to the loaded intro that Nick Robinson gave to one of his ex-BBC pals.
By those with a political agenda supported by right-wing newspapers and by some on the right of British politics. Well, a man who is used to dealing with this on both sides of the divide joins us in the studio this morning. Sir Craig Oliver was editor of the BBC's 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock.
Unbelievable. At least Charles Moore came on and pointed out the massive elephant in the room.
And if I may say so, I think that the way this has been covered this morning shows the problem you collectively have, which is that you're already trying to accuse people of coups and that sort of thing, rather than tell the listeners what this report, this internal memo said, and how serious the accusations in it are.
But with respect, Lord Moore, you're here doing exactly that.
Well, no, because you're already asking me about coups and that sort of thing.
No, I was asking you where you stand on the BBC before we talk about coups. I think that's really important for our listeners.
This should be good for the BBC, because it should really make them respect the idea of diversity of opinion and impartiality in their coverage. And what the internal memo shows is Nick Robinson, I think, tried to turn this into a thing about how Trump is threatening the BBC. There's actually only one thing about Trump in this, by far, which is important, but it's only one. By far the biggest thing in the internal memo is about the coverage of the Israel-Gaza.
But as the soon-to-be ex-CEO of BBC News, Deborah Turness, arrived defiantly at the corporation's headquarters today, she made it clear that they have no idea. These people have no idea. They are now past the last chance saloon.
I would like to say it has been the privilege of my career to serve as the CEO of BBC News and to work with our brilliant team of journalists. I stepped down over the weekend because the buck stops with me. But I'd like to make one thing very clear. BBC News is not institutionally biased. That's why it's the world's most trusted news provider.
Why did you fail to deal with the mistakes that were made?
And see my teams. Thank you so much.
Right, do you think that the journalists are corrupt like President Trump says? Do you think the journalists
our journalists aren't corrupt. Our journalists are hard-working people who strive for impartiality.
She doesn't get it.
Stand by their journalism.
Is there institutional bias at the BBC?
There is no institutional bias. Mistakes are made, but there's no institutional bias.
But why weren't the mistakes dealt with on Trump, on anti-Semitism, on women's rights?
I'm sure that story will emerge, but for now I'm going to go in and see our team.
Do you think the board acted against you? Do you think the board acted against you?
This way, Deborah.
Completely and utterly tone deaf. So I am with Liz Truss, who posted in response to Trump's attack, "I'm glad the US president and the rest of the world are seeing the BBC for what it is. Its failure to tell the truth on everything from transgender ideology to economics to Gaza has done huge damage to politics and government in this country. This should be the end of nationalised broadcasting." And now, in the past hour, a letter sent by Trump's lawyer demands the BBC retract and apologise for the false and defamatory claims, or he'll sue for $1 billion. The deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern Time this Friday. That's 10 p.m. UK time, meaning the clock is quite literally ticking for the BBC. Although regardless of whether they give Trump what he is quite rightly demanding, I believe it is already far too late for this disgusting, for this crooked, for this failed organisation that shames our United Kingdom. Now, the Superstar Panel. Reform UK's Epping pick lady, Orla Minihane, with me alongside Chris Davies of True Conservative Media. Orla, wow. Let's start with the breaking news. Trump is completely right to do this, isn't he?
Yes, he is. He's absolutely right to do it. I mean, look, you know, this is what makes me die with the BBC. Oh, they're the same. Lessons will be learned. We should have dealt with this. This wasn't a mistake that was made by a junior journalist. This wasn't a mistake, you know, somebody's quoted the wrong age or the wrong, you know, the wrong political party. This was this is absolute fabrication. They completely lied. They doctored a speech that he made, which then caused riots and caused absolute global mayhem. And they're saying, oh, nothing to see here. Oh, you know, they're an absolute joke, the BBC. They've been a joke for years. And absolutely he is. And I hope he sues them so that I hope he ruins them, because they have brought so much distress and so many lies and just complete fabrication to so many things that have affected this country. And you know what? So many people have had to pay the price because of their bias and frankly, their evil, the way that they have.
Yes.
You know, the way, you know, look at what they did with the Palestinian, you know, the panorama thing with the Palestinian boy who happened to be a son of one of the. It's just horrendous. You know, they're anti-Semitic, they're anti-British people. They're just vile, and I hope he brings them down.
Yeah, I mean, it is a long litany of evil, Chris Davies.
Yes.
And this is what shocks me when people talk about this once great BBC. What? When they were shielding the worst paedophile in British history.
They knew about it. They knew about it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? They are the ultimate, the arrogance of the BBC as well. You know, we are the world's greatest news channel. You know, everybody comes to us for trusted. No, they don't. We all know. We've all seen through it. You're right. Jimmy Savile, you know, the amount of paedophiles they've covered up, the amount of lies they've told, the one-sided, you know, rhetoric that they've given us around so many different stories and coverage. It's just absolute. I'm so glad. I hope this brings them down. I think that we need a new age of media, a new age of news, truth, transparency, where, you know, yes, you can say I'm a broadcaster for, you know, and I favour the left or I favour the right. That's your prerogative, but don't lie and make stuff up, because it's just absolutely it's just awful. I'm so glad. I honestly hope he destroys them.
Me too, but I mean, Chris Davies, the problem that we've got is all of these cretins are in it together, right? So if we look at the off-communists, which is the state regulator that you'll remember succeeded in driving me out of GB News as they launched this big campaign, and the boss has folded very quickly. Check out their statement following Tim Davies' resignation. I'd like to thank Tim Davies for his contribution. He's led at a time of great change and challenge, says Dame Melanie Dawes, the chief executive of Ofcom. Who the hell is she kidding? Chris Davies. I mean, look at the past 5 years. It's been a total mess. From Gary Lineker to Bob Villan to Gaza, to Trump, to trans, and she's congratulating him because they are all one big sicko club.
Spot on, Dan. Absolutely on the money. I'm sat here with a big grin on my face today because, look, Schadenfreude ordinarily is a very unfortunate emotion, but you've got to give it to Trump. He's gone full Austin Powers, but bigly. I believe him when he says that he will sue. I think he'll get his apology. But when I look through your monologue at Concast and Sky and BBC and Cover Up, I remember when the Today programme used to have credibility, Dan, about 40 years ago. Not anymore, long since. Yeah. And when you go through the eclectic mix of flotsam and jetsam that you did during your monologue, they have one thing in common. They're all part of the same club. They're all rotten to the core. And I felt sorry for about 15 seconds for the man of the cloth who decided to go on Sly News. Because frankly and honestly, if you choose to go on the mainstream media, expect to have your words twisted. Yeah. The only places you can trust now are the Dan Wootton Outspoken show, 2C TV, Urban Scoop, and other independent media producers.
Totally, don't do it. Do not do it. Stop thinking you can change them, because you can't. It is so baked in. Now, Ola, I've got to ask you about Adil Ray. Seriously, like, look at how quickly woke ITV gets rid of folk if they go against the narrative.
Look what they did to Rylan.
Totally.
Look what they did to Rylan.
Totally.
Because he happened to give his opinion on something. This is vile.
And he hasn't been back on. He hasn't been back on.
No.
But this dude openly advocating for Sharia law, and I just wanted to spell out today, Ola, because I think some people don't quite realise the reality of Sharia law, because of course you've got someone like Adil Ray saying, oh, it's just haters of Islam who are painting this negative picture of what Sharia law really is. He's hauled into a meeting, but allowed on air on Friday. In some ways, I don't mind. He said the quiet bit out loud. You know, we now have an Islamist who wants the introduction of Sharia law sitting on ITV's cosy sofa. That should tell you everything we need to know about the mainstream media.
It does. It does. It's terrifying. And you know what? I can't grasp the fact that people, the ignorant left, are embracing this in this sort of woke ideology and thinking that these people are their friends. They are not your friends. Everything that you stand for with your lefty, do-gooder agenda, these people are against. You listed it earlier. They hate the LGBT community. They hate women. They don't want women to have equal rights. They don't want gay people to have equal rights. They don't want gay people to exist. They want complete and utter domination. And when I see these people with like signs saying, oh, Allah for LGBTQ, or Allah loves gays. No, he doesn't. They hate you. They
want you off
friends.
The top of that building.
They're not your friends. It's game over for you idiots. I can't grasp the mentality of these people. I was in, if you look at the Tower, I can't remember if you guys remember, but the Tower Hamlets scenario where they wanted to pass us off or condemn us as all far-right thugs and the pink ladies and and all that jazz. And we went up there. These men loathe us. They loathe us. We are scum of the earth. White women are scum of the earth. Gay men are scum of the earth. And that you can see and feel the contempt. But then you have all the stand up for racism with their pink hair and their blah, 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 their rainbow flags. And I'm looking at them thinking, oh my God, you're the first ones that are going to be gone. You're the first ones that they're going to get rid of. Don't be so stupid. They are not your friends. It's crazy. And what I don't understand is this constant bowing down to Sharia law, and bowing down to, this misogyny. I just can't understand it. What has happened to us? What has happened to us?
It's the definition of suicidal empathy, and it is the beginning of the end of the West unless we fight this. And part of fighting it now involves the destruction of the mainstream media. I've never been more convinced of that. Breaking today, Axed Talk TV star Mike Graham has spoken out for the first time since his suspension from the station after he was accused of sending a racist Instagram post, which he claims was as a result of his account being hacked. Now, there's a huge amount going on behind the scenes. I'm the only person who has reported on this. The mainstream media have, for some reason, pretended that this whole crisis just isn't going on at Murdoch's company. Again, totally bizarre. But Mike Graham has called in heavy-hitting lawyers. He has refused to hand his phone over to the investigators for News UK. Not surprising given, let's be honest, what's News UK most famous for? Hacking phones. But in a quite extraordinary development over the weekend, Talk TV has now turned off replies on its own X account. Yes, that's right. The free speech channel will not let its own viewers engage because so many of them are boycotting the station and demanding the return of Mike Graham. I would argue in a sign of what's to come, Mike Graham today issued his first public statement since being axed. It was on video. It had a similar backdrop to that we're used to seeing of him on Talk TV. And it was to make the announcement that his live show next week, which had been heavily trailed and heavily promoted on Talk before his suspension, alongside Jeremy Kyle, who is ironically now presenting Mike's show, yeah, it's a complicated web, has been cancelled or at least postponed until next year. Let's look at what Mike Graham had to say.
Good morning. I'm Mike Graham, and I just wanted to say a special heartfelt thank you to all of you brilliant listeners and viewers who have sent me some of the most fantastic messages of support over the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate it. I've read every single one, and they really do give me great encouragement. So thank you again. I also wanted to say a personal apology about having to cancel the show at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, The World of Common Sense, this week. But don't worry, it'll be back next May the 26th to be precise. So we will see you then. Meanwhile, I'll see you soon.
But I don't think, I'm going to be honest with you, because I'm very tapped into this story, I do not think it is going to be on Talk. What's interesting is that his two close friends who are presenting his two flagship shows have taken very different approaches. Jeremy Kyle, who's now on the Breakfast Hot Seat, doesn't even mention Mike Graham at all. He's booked in to appear all this week, whereas Kevin O'Sullivan, hosting Plank of the Week, did refer to Mike. Watch.
Well, a very good morning to you. It is Monday the 10th of November, and I woke up this morning and I thought, you know what? It's absolutely hacking it down with rain across the United Kingdom. The wind is blowing. It's awful, isn't it?
Welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm in for Mike Graham, and I'm surrounded by beauty and glamour this week, at the risk of seeming like an old-fashioned sexist, which of course I am.
You'll be axed next, Kev. We know the off-communists are already after you. But look, the viewers and the listeners have had enough now. They've had enough. And I was being lobbied by a lot of people behind the scenes at Talk saying, oh, we can't say anything, Dad. Look, it's been weeks. It's been weeks. You are taking your viewers and your listeners for fools. And as Emma Louisa, who is running one of these campaigns supporting Mike Graham, posted, we're now entering week 3 of Talk TV's feeble investigation into Mike Graham, and patience has long run out. This delay and radio silence is beyond unacceptable. Mike Graham is a broadcaster of rare brilliance. He is a voice that connects, challenges, and entertains like no other. Talk has lost its heartbeat without him, and so the boycott continues. We won't stop until Mike is back where he belongs, on our screens and behind the mic, leading the conversation as only he can, as the true king of Talk. Oh, and Talk TV, you lose Mike, you've lost us. We've done for good. We miss you. She added, they've actually done it. Talk TV has disabled comments. When a broadcaster is so overwhelmed by thousands of viewers and listeners all asking the same thing, where is Mike Graham? Their only solution is to mute everyone. Instead of listening to their audience, they've just tried to silence us, which is very strange for a station that claims to value free speech, isn't it? Don't worry though, we'll just keep asking louder, and everywhere else, they won't silence us that easily. And I can show you the Talk TV post, actually. It was Kevin O'Sullivan presenting Plank of the Week, and you cannot reply. You cannot reply. They've done a Sadiq Khan to my superstar panel, all of Minnie Hayne and Chris Davies of True Conservative Media. Chris, look, this is quite astonishing now, because it's like they've learned nothing from the scenario with me at GB News, where they took the audience for fools. They were not honest with them. They said nothing for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, but they've now tried to silence their own viewers expressing displeasure, which is quite an irony. for a channel which describes itself as the free speech home?
I'm back to Schadenfreude again, Dan. I mean, the home of free speech, yeah, not really. Well, it's the home of speech we like. It's okay if it's compelled speech. It's okay if it's acceptable speech. It's okay if it's authorised speech. But free speech, well, we can't have too much of that, Dan. We definitely can't have people replying to X posts because they might say dangerous things like reinstate Mike Graham, sack the board, and Talk TV's rubbish. It's controlled opposition. Don't bother watching it, or GB News, because that's the People's Channel and that's rubbish too. Stick with the independent media, that kind of thing. You can't have that kind of commentary. It's a disgrace. It's an outrage. Ofcom will never allow it, Dan. No, look, it's ridiculous. It is, honestly, we are in unprecedented times. And, you know, the Keir Starmer to Donald Trump free speech has been around for a very long time, and it will be with us for a very long time. It becomes more and more absurd by the day.
Yeah, what a lie that was. Olamini Hain, what did you think of Mike Graham's first public statement? Do you think he was quite controlled in terms of what he could say? Were you worried about him at all?
Do you know what? Yeah, I was just going to say to you, he looks really sad, really downtrodden. You know, he has been he's the nicest man. And from my personal experience, I've been on his show a couple of times, and he's really, really pushed the Pink Lady movement for me and the ladies, especially when we were in Westminster. And he's always just been so positive and supportive. And he looks to me in that video absolutely heartbroken, like he's, you know, and I suppose if you are guilty of something and you have done something wrong, you know, there's an element of you hold your hands up and take accountability. But he looks like he hasn't. He looks like he's done nothing wrong. He feels completely betrayed. And that's really heartbreaking to see. He looks like a shadow of his former self, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's a roller coaster, actually, going through something like this, because you feel a great sense of betrayal.
Yeah.
What Mike has done for Talk TV is actually very similar in terms of what I'd done for GB News. You know, we poured our heart and our soul into making those stations successes. And for him to feel that level of betrayal is hard. At the same time, Chris, I have also sensed some real excitement within Mike Graham. I mean, for example, this big live event at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, which was also going to feature Jeremy Kyle, that is an independent venture of his. That is the future. Do you know what I mean? Actually, I think this is the most incredible time for Mike Graham to be free of the shackles of the mainstream media for all of the reasons that we've spoken about today. So, look, he's obviously going to come under pressure on certain issues in this space. For example, his previous comments on Tommy Robinson. But I think he is one of the few people in the United Kingdom mainstream media, Chris, who can succeed in this independent space. Do you agree?
I do. I agree with all of it. He looked a little bit broken, but at the same time, defiant. I think, you know, he clearly has rolled out the big guns here against Talk, and that really is only about negotiating his exit now. There's no way back for him, that's clear. I do think he can cross the Rubicon into independent media, and perhaps you might find that his attitude on subjects such as Tommy Robinson may ameliorate somewhat compared to what he has to say within the confines of Talk TV, given its woke ownership.
Yeah.
So, you know, Dan, when it comes down to it, come on in, Mike, the water's warm. There's nothing to fear from the independent media. You know, when you look at what you have achieved, Dan, in less than 18 months, and the number of subscribers you've got, the number of followers you've got on X, the penetration that you're getting, the global audience that you've reached, it's all there for Mike if he wants it.
Yeah, I would like to have seen Jeremy Kyle maybe say something and acknowledge him, you know, because having been in a situation, I'm sure, Dan, you were the same, where you have, and maybe they are still best friends, who knows, but I think that as a friend and a colleague, when you've trusted somebody, I think it is a nice touch just to acknowledge the fact that you have stepped in, because otherwise it looks a little bit slippery.
It's so horrible to be erased publicly. Correct. It really is. And
heartbreaking.
Look, Jeremy Kyle knows what it's like to be cancelled. And I can tell you for sure that he has been a support to Mike Graham behind the scenes.
Good.
The problem
Good.
is, do these people want to lose their jobs? And no, of course they don't. And so I'm not being totally unrealistic about the confines that people have to deal with when they've got corporate overlords. And that's the whole reason why I'm saying the mainstream media needs to be smashed altogether. Because it is so sad, isn't it, that Jeremy Kyle can't just go on air and acknowledge his best mate. But he can't because he's told not to.
No, it's first principles stuff, Dan, though, isn't it, really? You know, when it all comes down, you've got to have some backbone. I appreciate, you know, there are editorial constraints. But actually, I mean, Jeremy's not short of a few bob, as I understand it, you know, from his days doing the Jeremy Kyle show. And Kevin certainly has stood up as Mike's friend, Kevin O'Sullivan, and not been shy of saying that he's standing in for Mike Graham. It wouldn't hurt Jeremy Kyle to do the same thing. You, of all people, know, Dan, that small acts of loyalty like that make a huge difference.
Oh, they do.
100%.
They
100%.
absolutely do. They absolutely do. And as I say, certainly one of the most difficult things for me was just the sense of like, oh, I've just been erased overnight. But as I say, I was glad to see Mike today. I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him very soon. And I am keeping across this story because I do find it bizarre, absolutely bizarre, that, again, there's just been like this deal done within the mainstream media. We're not going to talk about this story at all. It's very bizarre when they just decide that a person can be deleted, can be erased. But the great thing is in the mainstream media space, that does not happen. The free speech disgrace involving the former footballer, Joey Barton, has disgusted me. It has disgusted me, and actually it's terrified me because so few people are prepared to speak up for Joey. And it's not about what he said. It's about the fact that in Britain, which was previously the home of free speech, we have a legal right, or at least I thought we did, to be able to offend. We have a legal right to sometimes be grossly offensive, actually. Sometimes it's necessary. And if you do not stick up for Joey Barton now, what's next? The arrest of J.K. Rowling, the arrest of Ricky Gervais? When is enough enough? But this is how the mainstream media are trying to portray the story.
Footballer Joey Barton has been found guilty of posting grossly offensive messages on social media. The posts were directed at Jeremy Vine and the football commentators Lucy Ward and Eni Aluko. In one post, Barton compared Ward and Aluko to the Fred and Rose West of football commentary. After a 5-day trial, the jury at Liverpool Crown Court decided that Barton had crossed the line between free speech and a crime on 6 counts.
It was a damn joke. Okay, like, you might think it's tasteless. I might not have posted it. He's been convicted of a crime. He could go to jail. This should be leading every news story. The Free Speech Union should be shouting from the rooftops about this. Very few people have seen sense about why it's necessary to support Joey Barton. And I have to give credit to one of them on the left, Paul Embry, who posted, I cannot get my head around this. Joey Barton was convicted in a court of law for suggesting that a black football pundit was only there to tick boxes and then leveling criticism at the BLM movement. Disagree with his opinions by all means. But this is simply crazy. Bernie Spofforth added, you don't have to like or agree with what Joey Barton ever says, but if you believe in free speech, then you must support him. Many people can't afford to speak freely. I've always said it comes at a cost. Support him. He's not only fighting for himself, but you as well. Chris Rose added, it's bonkers that Joey Barton could end up in prison for offensive jokes about BLM, Jeremy Vine, and suggesting Eni Aluko is a DEI hire. On the other hand, Gary Lineker reshares posts comparing Jews to rats with no consequences. These situations only seem to go one way. And I have to tell you, this is why we can't trust the judiciary either. Because the judge was disgusted that, wait for it, Joey Barton decided to wear a Union Jack scarf to the trial. Chris Rose went on, When Joey wore a scarf to court, Judge Andrew Menery said he has chosen to adorn himself with a particular flag. A stunt to make a point. He will not be permitted to do that on the date of sentence. Or what? Or what? You're going to lock him up for longer? This is really serious, though. Tommy Robinson posted another dark day in modern Britain as Joey Barton has been found guilty of 6 counts of hurting people's feelings on X. TV host Jeremy Vine said in court that Barton gravely upset me, and a sports pundit female said she had suffered anxiety from his words. And Lawrence Fox added, why is it any business of the judge what scarf Joey Barton wore? Why comment on it with such disdain? What purpose does it serve? Judges aren't paid to be fashion police. Stop policing tweets and put your energy into stopping Britain descending into a diversity stabfest. To my superstar panel, Chris Davies of True Conservative Media and Orla Minihane of the Epping Pink Ladies, a member of Reform UK. Orla, seriously, it disgusts me that there has been no real unity on the so-called right, or whatever we call ourselves, you know, freedom fighters, conservatives, because the view is that Joey Barton's jokes were in some way beyond the pale. He has received such limited support, such limited coverage. But this to me is a truly chilling case.
It's just look, we are we North Korea? I can't you know what, I'm on X and I'm on Insta and whatever, and I'm posting things, and sometimes, and I would never write anything that I would deem offensive, but you know, I think that we have a right to talk about things that are very important that are being covered up. And every time I put something on there, somebody writes back and says, be careful, Walla, be careful. Don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. You know, we are living on eggshells in case we offend somebody. Do you know what? I went and saw Ricky Gervais a couple of weeks ago. He is so brilliant. And he always says, the fact you're offended by me is your problem, not mine. Right? And that is so true. You know, we were always, the British people were always considered to have the best sense of humour. We were funny, you know, we had some of the best comedies in the 70s and 80s. You know, it was, you know, even the Americans always used to say, oh my God, you guys are so funny, and, you know, da-da-da. Now, you can't make a joke, a simple joke. What he said wasn't offensive. And to be fair, she's a dreadful pundit, right?
Yes.
And she was a fair and she had anxiety. Oh, poor you. What is going on? Grow a pair, get a sense of humour, for God's sake. He didn't say anything wrong. He didn't say anything racially offensive. He didn't say anything about her being a woman. Whatever. He just made a joke and a comment, and now he's going to be taken to prison. And then he wears a Union Jack scarf, and that's offensive? I mean, where does this end? And you're so right. On one hand, it's funny, and we look and we just laugh because it's so utterly pathetic. But in another way, it's so dangerous, because where is this going to end? Yet the left, or, you know, your man on ITV can say what he wants, and it is offensive to our core and everything we believe in, but scot-free. In fact, he's actually celebrated. Madness.
100%, because Chris Davies, you just know that no one gives a damn what is said about anyone who happens to be on the centre right or the right, or however we, you know, frame where we are today. The most horrendous things have been said about me over the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, honestly, like, I won't even go there, but seriously, truly, far worse than anything Joey Barton said about those pundits or Jeremy Vine. Now, I would never want those folk to receive criminal convictions.
Dan, you wouldn't even want to cancel Adil Ray, but then neither would I, because he's a fool who believes in Sharia and should go and live in one of the 58 countries where Sharia exists. But look, Joey Barton divides opinion. He's polarising, like Ricky Gervais, like Katie Hopkins, like various others. He's a better pundit than he was a footballer. And he was a violent little so-and-so when he was younger. But we all grow up and we all get grey hairs. I've got no issue with anything he's got to say. The reason for that, as you know, Dan, I'm a free speech absolutist, and I believe sunlight's the best disinfectant. You don't have to agree with everything he says. And equally, offence can only ever be taken. It can never be given. And it is subjective, like humour is subjective.
100%.
And if you don't like it, turn it off. If you don't like the tweet, scroll past it. Grow up. The fact that we're even contemplating a custodial sentence for jokes on X, particularly jokes about Jeremy Vine, is beyond me.
It is. But Alex Belfield has already gone to prison for making comments about Jeremy Vine. And look, some people may have said they went too far, but he spent such a long time in prison. And Chris, I look over at what's happening in the US at the moment, and this desperate attempt to crush someone like Nick Fuentes, who is this controversial figure, but then also let's crush Tucker Carlson too, just for interviewing him. And I see exactly the same thing happening to Joey Barton. You know, this was a guy who used to be beloved by the liberal media, you know, when he was considered to be on the left and he was the bad boy of football, they loved him.
That's exactly what it's about. And do you know what? So, yeah, I was actually talking to Sarah today, Sarah White. And we were talking about some of the things we receive on social media. I cannot tell you, Dan, some of the offensive things. Some of them are really funny, and I ring her up and we laugh about how offensive things are. But some stuff that is dangerous and damn right nasty and could be deemed as very, very dangerously threatening, who do we go to? If I went to the police and said, so-and-so has said this about me, and blah, I guarantee you they go, oh, well. But the other way round, if it was me and I said something, they'd be outside with the blue lights on. So how is this allowed? Why is there one rule for one and one rule for the other? You know, and I mean, we're women, right? And we're inoffensive women who are just sticking up for, you know, other women and trying to, you know, sort of try and expose what is happening to women and girls in this country. And yet people are calling for the same thing to happen to us and our daughters. And that's okay.
Two-tier justice, though, Orla. I mean,
unbelievable.
To make a comparison between Nick Fuentes and Joey Barton is really stretching it. You can't conflate the two. I mean, Nick Fuentes, with the best will in the world, he's a racist Jew hater. No getting away from it. He's on the record in what he says. Again, I've got no problem with Tucker platforming Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes went after Tucker's dad.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not comparing what Joey said to what Nick says. That's not my point, really. My point is it's the same tactics being used to crush someone, to silence someone.
Yes.
I don't
like what you
want
say. We
anyone
don't like
silenced.
And that's the point, Dan, isn't it? You know, if you're on the left, you seemingly have free reign. You can advocate for Sharia. You can call for someone on the right to be assassinated.
Yes.
And it's not a problem. But if it's the other way around, somebody who is even moderately right of centre, I mean, you've made the point perfectly. Joey Barton is not naturally right-wing. He's actually a lefty. But yet now, because he said a few things, a few hurty words, he's now in with that lot, us. Now he's been disowned.
100%. And then it is more than just being disowned. It is total cancellation. It is annihilation. It is you can never get a job again. And it is also, we might even lock you up. We might take away your liberty. We're going to make it impossible for you to travel to other countries. We want to destroy you financially. The dude has already paid £600,000 to Jeremy Vine. It's mad. It's utterly mad. It's utterly mad. And the problem is...
just really quickly, sorry to interrupt, but if you read some of the things like Narinder Khan said, or, you know, people like that, some of the vile stuff that they do and say.
Yeah, Narinder Kaur.
Nobody bats an eyelid.
100%. Narinder Kaur. And she wastes the police.
Yeah,
she wastes the police's time all the time. But of course, the police would never be interested in her whatsoever. Developing today, a massive shake-up in the left-wing media ecosystem, which is going to mean the beginning of the end of the British mainstream media. And trust me, I am here for it. Let me take you through it. So Sky, which is owned by Concast, the hard left US corporate giant, which is also behind MSNBC, the hate-filled, Trump-despising Rachel Maddow Black Lives Matter-loving outfit, is about to also take over woke ITV. Now, what this means is there is going to be one hell of a shake-up in UK broadcasting. And what I'm very excited about is that it's going to likely mean either the end altogether of Sly News or the end altogether of woke ITV News. So there's panic, of course, at both of these companies who know that the end is nigh and it's going to be painful. Here's how Sly reported the news on themselves.
But we're going to turn to some breaking news now this morning because ITV is in discussions with Sky, the owner of Sky News, about selling the media and entertainment arm of its business.
Yeah, the deal will be worth £1.6 billion. I'm pleased to say, to explain what's going on here, we've got our business correspondent, Paul Kelso. Morning to you, Paul. Great to have you with us. Tell us, what is this all about?
It appears to be an opportunity by Sky, the owners of Sky News, and ultimately owned by an American cable giant broadcasting company, Concast, to capitalise on what looks like what may be perhaps something of a bargain in ITV, the largest terrestrial free-to-air commercial broadcaster in the UK, has been having a somewhat troubled time.
Now, this is just an extraordinary moment in broadcasting. Let me bring my superstar panel back. Orla Minnie-Hayne and Chris Davies of True Conservative Media. Chris, this is quite monumental, really, because ITV, woke ITV, as I now call it, used to be the crown jewel in commercial broadcasting in the United Kingdom. The fact that it is being sold off to be subsumed into just a small part of Concast's international strategy, just part of Sly's broadcasting arm, shows you how far this channel has fallen. But the writing has been on the wall for some time. Its share price is down 75%. Its ratings on all of the flagship shows have pretty much halved. That's why we're seeing staff being booted from shows like Good Morning Britain, which is merging with ITV News. The end for half the year of the likes of Lorraine, where I worked for 10 years, and Loose Women. It really is already the beginning of the end. But this, Chris, is going to be quite seismic because, trust me, there is absolutely no way that a corporate giant like Concast is going to say, okay, we're going to keep our news operation running on woke ITV, which for a long time has been made by ITN, and we're going to keep this loss-making operation in Sly News, which no one runs. So, which no one watches, sorry. So at the end of the day, one of the two, and they're enemies of the United Kingdom, one of the two are going, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But you're a businessman, Chris. What's your take on this?
I think it's remarkable that ITV is considered worth £1.6 billion, Dan. I wouldn't give you a pound for it. I wouldn't give you the change out my pocket for it. It's become, like the BBC, Dan, it's an anachronism. It should be put out of its misery and allowed to die. And seemingly, if it goes to Concast, that's exactly what's going to happen. These broadcasters, the legacy media, Dan, I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show, I'm saying it because it's true. Their history, their toast, they've been rumbled. We all know what they are. You know, I heard Deborah Turness describe the BBC as the world's leading news service. It is. It's the world's leading fake news service. That's what it is. That's what woke ITV is. That's what Sly News is. You know, these places are now for people of a certain age who maybe haven't quite progressed into digital technology and appreciate what is available on the other side of the internet. Nobody that we know watches this rubbish and believes it anymore. We're not that gullible.
Yeah. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. You know, my mum said to me, bless her, the other day, she said, well, I saw it on the BBC News, so it must be true. No, it's not true. So there's this, you're absolutely right, Chris, there's this age group, sort of 70 plus. But you know what, saying that, I've got a lot of women that I stand by, we go protesting with, and they're switched on. And they know it's a load of old rubbish. And I mean, if you look at ITV, 15 years ago, when you had X Factor and Simon Cowell and Ant and Dec were at their, their prime, there was actually some stuff on there that was relatively entertaining. It was, good, and it was quite fun. If you turn it on now, Loose Women, oh my God, it is just a debacle of dullness. I also think that the Holly and Philip Schofield thing was an absolute disaster for them. The way that she threw him under the bus, and people just started thinking, what is this nonsense that we're having to watch? But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's people of a certain age. Corrie was obviously something that Coronation Street was something that carried them for many, many years. And even that turned into a load of old woke rubbish. So, there's nothing saving them. There's nothing to save them anymore.
There's only one thing worse than loose women, and that's loose men. Beta men. Pretending to, cuck themselves.
Oh, I don't mind the loose man, Chris, I'll be honest.
No comment. Let's go. Come on. We're only just before the watershed. I know we can get away with a little bit more on here, especially with Dan, because he's naughty.
I mean, I'll bring it back on track by just saying, I think what is going to be so beautiful about this is that all of the big beasts of these two broadcasters are going to spend the next year freaking out, So whether it's Beth Rigby on Sly News or Susanna Reid on Woke ITV, they know their days are numbered. Only half of these guys will survive. It's going to be very interesting to me, though, Chris, to see what the Concast bosses decide to do. Because let me put it to you that it might actually be Woke ITV which survives this. I wouldn't be surprised if Sly News is shut down altogether and they use ITN, which remember is pretty much owned by ITV, as the new news operation. I do think that's a possibility, Chris, because while obviously I have completely turned against the news output on ITV News, I think it's now further to the left than even the British Bashing Corporation. It's quite disgusting, the agenda they push. You could argue it is more commercially successful than Sly News, which has been a total disaster, a basket case in recent years, Chris, and is costing tens of millions of pounds a year. It hasn't made money ever. So there is another possibility here, Chris, that just because Concast is the big beast coming in to buy ITV, it doesn't necessarily protect Sly News. Sly News could simply be shut down altogether and ITV News would become the company's new arm of news broadcasting. Now, I'm not saying either is good, but I just don't think the people at Sly should be feeling safe today.
Dan, you're on the money. It's going to come down to eyeballs, and it's going to come down to, what sells, okay? This broadcaster, these broadcasters, currently as plural, are dependent on advertising revenue, and we all know that's through the floor. So then it's a question of what gets eyeballs on screen to get the advertisers to commit that are already there and to get new ones through the door. And I think you're quite right. I think there's a real chance, actually, that ITV might be retained and Sly goes. Remember, Sly's only been around for 30-odd years, whereas ITV's been around since the 50s, 60s? So, and it is a stronger brand. Whether you and I like it, whether we agree with it, whether we think it's the right thing to do, whenever two beasts come together, whether it's called a merger, whether it's called a takeover, there are winners and losers. And it is quite commonly the place that it effectively could be a reverse takeover where ITV wins and Sly loses. You're
well, 100%, 100%, because I'm sorry, why pay £1.6 million if you are simply... Sorry, £1.6 billion if you are simply going to shut down the programming. And with all the will in the world, if you put the awful Beth Rigby and Sophie Ridge and all of that lot on Woke ITV, the ratings would be even lower. That'd be even lower than Susanna Reid and the Sharia law pushing Adil Ray. So I do think at the end of the day, we are going to see the end of Sly News if this deal goes through. And you know what? I will be toasting that moment. And it is sad It's very, very sad because there was a time when under Rupert Murdoch's control, Sly News was absolutely essential as a true breaking news service that did provide an impartial alternative to the British Bashing Corporation. It really did. And trust me, on big news days in our history before there was social media, for example, 7/7, it was then Sky News under Rupert Murdoch that provided the quality breaking news that this country needed. But as soon as Murdoch was forced to give up Sky News and it was taken over by Concast, this hard left company, the entire channel's editorial direction has gone such a long way down the gutter, to the point where today they are advocating that Christianity in Britain is a negative thing. The march of Christianity is a terrible thing. So as I say, I will celebrate
Go
the
woke,
end
go
of Sky
broke.
News. 100%. 100%.
Do you know what, Dan? Very, very quickly, what
Please.
used to pass for journalism is now opinion.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is agenda pushing. It's the BBC, it's ITV, it's Sly, and it is the management of those organisations. They push agendas. That's why they're the fake news, and that's why Trump is right to go after the BBC as hard as he is.
Absolutely.
Go on,
The
Trump. Go
deadline,
on,
of
Trump.
course. The deadline of Friday. I just need to ask you two about a couple of little things. Orla, the Pink Ladies are continuing, despite all of the pressure on you to just shut up and go away and be shut down. You're saying hell no to that. And you have another big demo planned.
Yes.
You've just announced the details. Can you reveal what's going on?
Yeah, so on the 22nd of November in Chelmsford, in Tyndall Square, which is right in the middle of Chelmsford town centre, Chelmsford has a terrible, terrible problem with a migrant camp that is on the outskirts between Chelmsford and Braintree, which is 1,200 men who are bussed into the town centre every day and loiter around, bored, drinking, sitting around car parks. It's just hell on earth for these people, and it's right in the middle of Essex. And we've got a massive problem in Essex in loads and loads of towns and villages around the Essex area. So we are bringing down women from Newcastle, from Scotland. I had a phone call from a lady today in Inverness, and she's coming down with a group of women.
Yes.
This is really, really taking hold. And if you look, Dan, on a serious note, look at how many women have been killed in the last 2-3 weeks. Lily, 19. Katie Fox today found guilty, stabbed to death in Birmingham. This is just out of control. Out of control. And all we hear is thousands and thousands more coming in day after day. And you know what? We are not going to give up. These women, I've now got groups of women in every region of this country standing up and saying, enough. And I'm hoping that the 22nd of November is going to be a massive, big day. And I really would love every woman and man, but it's led by women, supported by men, to come and show that, we are not going to be silenced.
We must not be.
The only way that we can hold this government to account is to shame them into listening to us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And I support everything that the Pink Ladies do, and we'll be continuing to cover it here on Outspoken. And Chris, I was so concerned about what's going on with you and unfortunately your ex account. So this is really bizarre. You posted on September the 4th, 2025, all the oxygen is being sucked out of debate by Renegade. Just remember, every day, without fail, up and down the country, Pakistani Muslim rape gangs are gang raping vulnerable white British girls, detained, deport, remigrate. We are taking our country back. Now, True Conservative Media, your organisation, has posted that it is now 22 days since Chris Davies was locked out of his ex account for alleged violent speech for the post below. Grok has confirmed it is no such thing, all as a result of an Islamist pile-on that broke the algorithm. I mean, this is truly astonishing because I cannot see anything wrong with that original post.
No, Dan, it's all to do with the fact that if you look at my pinned post and a couple below it on that profile, that I came out in support of Israel. And the one that I think really got people riled was that I've never seen a Jew blow themselves up. I've never seen a Jew do this, never seen a Jew do that. And they've got something like 600 and nearly 700,000 views. And it caused a pile-on. And what they've done is a little bit of ex-archaeology, pick a post they can all lump on, and they've come after me for a pile-on. X wrote to me and said, what's your view? And I said, no, I'm appealing this. So they've locked me out of my account now it's now 23 days. And they call in that post violent speech, which I find absolutely phenomenal. And we're back to what we were saying earlier on, Dan. If I was on the left, if I was Owen Jones, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. If I was Jeremy Corbyn, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But because I happen to be a man of the right and a proud man of the right, and I say what I think is common sense, and I think seemingly quite a few people agree with me, the algorithm is broken, it needs human intervention, and it's not getting it at the moment, despite the best efforts of people like yourself who very kindly reposted that post from True Conservative.
Such a shame. We need you back. We need you back on X. So
I'm ready to come back. Thank you, Dan. That's very, very kind.
It really is nuts. Chris Davies, the head of True Conservative Media, all up Vinnie Hayne, part of the Epping Pink Ladies, and of course a rising star of Reform UK. Thank you both so much. And we are going to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass in just one moment. First, your feedback though. Aleph Tootme says DEI, I love this, equals discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination. So true. Tina Hardman says everyone should boycott ITV. I never watched this garbage. I happened to see the clip of this gentleman veteran and the pillock Adil Ray asking him what he meant. Then he spouts crap about Sharia law. Edelweiss Susie says, I remember my excitement in 1970 when my parents bought our first ever TV. How times have changed. And Terry Shakespeare says, Christianity will never die. Jesus will return. The signs are there. Love God. There's no far right. We love our country and traditions. We're not racist. We want everyone to get on. Okay, a reminder of your nominees for today's Union Jackass. Alistair Campbell, nominated by Barnaby Apricot because he's BBC through and through. Adil Ray, nominated by Sarah Booth for promoting the benefits of Sharia law. And Nick Robinson, nominated by Scottfly23 for trying to defend the BBC bias. And in third place, with 7% of the vote, it is Nick Robinson. The runner-up, with 17% of the vote, Alistair Campbell. But it wasn't even close today. With 76% of the vote, your worst Briton in the world today, our Union Jackass, Adil Ray. And today's greatest Briton, connected to the show that he presents, Good Morning Britain, Alec Penstone, nominated by TTB Back Again. He is the World War II veteran who signed up at the age of 15, but now says the war wasn't worth it because of the state of the UK. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result, he said. Coming up in the uncancelled after show over on Substack, miserable Prince Harry's complete collapse is complete as he parties with the Kardashians and his populist, disgraceful wife at Kris Jenner's 70th, while his nephew proves the British monarchy remains strong. We have so much to discuss. There has been a lot of royal news, trust me, over the past 48 hours. So what we're going to do is team up with the Royal News Network right now on Substack. I would love you to join us there. www.outspoken.live is the address. But we will be back live with you tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe right now on YouTube. Turn on the notification bell. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.